Welcome to today. We are here in Unit 1, Lesson 2. Glad to have you all back. We look forward to seeing your comments in the comment box, and we're looking forward to having a great discussion here today. In order to get us centered and grounded as we go into this work, we're going to have our very own Ken Piarson start us off with a meditation.
Good evening, everyone. All right, let's start out by just understanding a little bit of what it's about to meditate and get quiet. For me, it's about unwinding as opposed to winding up. When I'm thinking really fast, I'm wound up, and when I'm unwinding, my thoughts get slower and slower. This is the opening to a prayer that really helps me to slow down. The glory of thy anointing light descends upon me. My soul quickeneth as that light surrounds me. That light shines through me. Thy light encompasses me. I am dissolved in thy light. Thy light and my light have become one. I am immersed in my light. I am in thy light, knowing thy light, asking that thou be with me, so that I would not be myself alone. And then take a quiet minute and we prepare for this session we're going to have tonight. Give yourself just another 10 seconds to just unwind. Okay, Mr. Bonzel.
Well, as we're getting ready to hand it over to John here tonight, I just want to mention a couple things to all of you. We have a special gift here for you at the end of our session. Our show is 90 minutes. And at the end of the 90 minutes, we're going to show a visual journey that Karen has created as a gift to all of our viewers. And then after that is shown this evening, we actually have agreed to stay on an extra 30 minutes to answer any Q&A. And John, before we start on the very first page of this lesson, why is Q&A so important with students? It really follows in the footsteps of what Walter and Leo Russell always thought was important.
Question and answers, because you're going to have people will have questions, and they're going to have lots of questions. And who are they going to go to? Well, you can go directly to God, but unless you know how to do that, then the best thing to do is to try to find someone or a group of people that is knowledgeable in that field. And that's what we're here for, is to help our guests along to try to understand and decipher this wonderful message we have.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. And so as I want you to take a look at the panel that we have on the screen, please know that in our playlist there on the Awaken Your Inner Genius YouTube channel, you can see the previous recordings we've done. The very first recording shares how we all came across the Russell message. The second one talks about the timeline of the Walter and Leo Russell and gives you a little bit of a historical perspective. And then you will find Unit 1, Lesson 1. And so, John, why don't we start off our conversation tonight? I'm going to ask James to pull up the home study course. And there on page 19, if you would read that bottom paragraph there, and you'll see where I've started off the highlight.
We have told you that anyone can acquire the technique of giving a material body to any idea. But so can an automatic machine or a tape recorder. A technique can be photographed or electrically repeated, and such a recording of a rendition by a master may even be immeasurably better than the technique of a human. You want me to continue?
You can keep
For
going.
the automatic, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. For the automatic recorder may record much of the soul of the master's technique, while the human may have acquired a perfect technique with his senses, but be lacking in soul.
All right, so why don't you explain that just a little bit, John, as we get started. I'll have us go back to the main screen here because there's a lot on each page where I want to keep our students centered. We've told you that anyone can acquire the technique of giving a material body to any idea. Can you share with anybody who might be new what that's really about?
You're asking me?
I am, and then I'm going to go from John to Jim.
Well, if you listen, for example, if you listen to classical music and, throughout the world, there's different competitions for piano works and that type of thing. But the winner is the guy that has put his soul that has put his soul into it. Whereas the other people, they simply are technicians. They can play a beautiful piano, but without the soul in it, it's totally different. And that's probably the best example I could give people
Okay. All
with that
right. Jim, how
explanation.
about you?
I'm sorry, what was the question
Jim,
to
how
me?
about how about you? What's your thoughts there about anyone can acquire the technique of giving material body to any idea? I want people to really understand what that means. I'll add my commentary in just a minute, but what does it mean to give material body to any idea?
Well, that's the manifestation of thoughts and things and idea. It's it's easy. We learn easily to do that. We learn easier to bring things into our life that we want that are more material based than spiritual based. We learn how to loop through thoughts that are more material or sensual based than spiritual based. It's more difficult to learn to commune, to manifest only that which benefits you and others. It's something that we evolve into through discipline, through meditation.
Okay. Now, Jackie, you brought things to life, when you started the Facebook page actually about the Russell work. And so I'm going to be asking both Ken and Karen in just a moment to give an example of something that you actually have brought material body to an idea. But Jackie, what inspired you to start that Facebook? Because that's really
Actually, that was started by Isa.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't pronounce his last name, but he's in Finland. And I had come across him. He had all sorts of Russell material, the charts, all this page. And so we started a conversation. And he doesn't have much time to monitor it. So he made me an administrator on that page. So
Okay.
I've just been taken off with it, and we converse now and then. And now it's, I'm putting all this information on that Facebook page.
Well, I'm
And
watching you bring material. I'm watching you bring material life to that idea, which has been really fun to watch. John, excuse me, Jim, I see you have an extra dose of the light tonight. So
Yeah.
let's all let that be symbolic of the light we want to invite in our world. Karen, when you bring ideas to life, so you bring that technique of giving material body to an idea, you do a lot of that. So I just want to make this very real and applicable to people about what that means. What do you bring to life?
Ooh, it's fun. For me, it's partly the magazine when I do it. And the magazine is a dance between me and spirit. So I work like James here late at night, and it's being in the flow. In a sense, it's like being inspired. And when you're working in that way, the universe shows you where to go next. It gives you different things in it and says, yep, that's it. You got it. And there's a feel to it. So you can find a lot of people's faces, but you need to find that face that actually conveys the true essence of an emotion. So when I'm looking at this, I look at Mozart versus John, who was that guy in the Mozart movie who compromised. He wasn't in the flow, so you didn't feel the feeling. And I think of musicians like somebody like Janis Joplin, who you would think, oh my goodness, she's not like an artist in the way, but she conveyed such an emotion when she sang, it just resonated with people. So that's my thought on that.
Okay, I love that, and I'll get ready to go to Ken, but I want to say welcome to our viewers. We have 12 viewers here from YouTube, a few from my page, hello my sweet sisters, and we've got some from the Awaken Your Inner Genius page. And so for all of our viewers, whether you're new or seasoned, please place comments or thoughts or questions there in the chat box as we continue with the audience as it grows. Over our 2 hours together, we'll be sure to say hello to you. So I want to say a gracious thank you. So Ken, what does it mean to bring material body? What have you brought to material body to any idea lately before we go on to the next page?
Well, I want to respond to this a little bit differently than what you're asking, because prior to that paragraph, it says something that was really important to me. And just above that on page 19, it says, I could never be an artist, for I could not even draw a straight line. That was the way that I felt until I read The Man Who Tapped the Secrets of the Universe and began to get into the home study course and started reading it over and over again. And so that's what they're trying to help me to understand. It's not about technique, which is usually like, I want to start a business, but I don't have money, so I'm never going to do it. That's technique. That has nothing to do with pursuing a passion and doing it with love. And once it's done with love, you strike the first note. We all have the ability to strike that first note on the keyboard, right, or the piano, and that first note, if it's struck with love, will resonate and strike a second note and a third note and so on. As long as we do it with love. But don't think that you can't learn a technique or be an artist or whatever it is. You have no limitations other than the ones you set yourself.
That's an awesome point, and I think that's part of what I really do believe inspires us all about the Russell work. So, John, I wanted us to go ahead and jump into page 20 there, and I love the middle title. I've got it circled in blue here on the screen because it really spoke to me. So, if you would read the title and then read that first sentence, and let's talk a little bit about why this particular subtitle of the lesson is so very important.
Love is the basis of the spirit, and the law of love is the basis of creation. The nature of God is to give out his love for regiving. The nature of the master must be to give out love to inspire others to re-give love. And that is huge. You know, that word, Kimberly, love, is so misinterpreted and misused. And that's what I love about this course, is that the Russells will give you the true meaning of love. Equal giving for re-giving. And it's that simple. It's that simple. And if people would apply that in their lives, boy, would it be a much happier place. But that term love, it's really the essence of all that is.
That is very true. And so we want to send some love to everyone that's here this evening. I want to say hello to Miss Linda, hello Ramona, hello Dee, and hello Kathy. And for anybody else, I'd love to see their comment and join the conversation. What all of this is the gift of love. And what our hope is that the love we're pouring into you on Sunday nights, you will then re-give it. Would that be a fair way to say it, Jim? Re-giving the love to others through what it is that we do?
Yes, I'm struggling with the light here.
That's okay. Well, it just looks like you have a halo, and so we're just going to give it to you there, Jim.
We should. It's the goal of all humanity is to learn how to hold that state of being that is love. It's not a thing. It's not an emotion. It's a state of being, and it's the universal one as a whole. And that is what we're all trying to obtain, is to hold that state of universal being and presence and sharing of love with all.
All right, so I'm going to ask James if he could bring up the fruit tree. So as we go into this next one, this is on actually page 20 for those of you that have your third special edition. I want to mention to you about one phrase here. So you'll see I've got it there. Go up a little bit there, James, on page 20. So there it says, and towards the bottom paragraph, masterliness is anything is the fruit of love. And when I was studying that, I couldn't help but think about a fruit tree, that as we plant whatever it is that we're doing in the world, when we are giving it love, it actually, that's part of what I think is so beautiful in nature. We've all seen nature actually multiply. And when, I mean, John, even your place that you live, you turn around and you show me every time I stop by, there's new nature coming in. The fruit of the love you give to the location ends up multiplying, right?
Yes. It's a two-way process.
Okay. Well, and Jim, I know you do the same thing. And so I just couldn't help but think, if we all could think about this little tree of love here somewhere in our hearts where we're actually multiplying the love. And so for me, Jim, I needed a little bit of a visual. Ken, we'll go to you to ask you for your commentary here on the bottom of page 20 about which direction to go. But I really couldn't help but think about this notion of the fruit of love. And may we all plant our own little tree where the fruit of love blossoms. Hello, Miss Karen, Diane, and Bonnie. Ken, where would you like to go on the bottom of page 20?
I like to. This to me is the nuts and bolts of this whole cosmogony philosophy, and the greatest purpose I believe any human being can fulfill, and that is why constant at the very bottom there, the last paragraph, it says, that is why your constant communion with God is necessary for every moment of life and every stage of your creative I was brought up, not brought up, but there was the idea you prayed in the morning, you might pray midday, and you might pray at night and say goodnight, you know. But the reality of it is that who am I talking to, and what am I working with all day long if I'm only praying in the morning, praying midday, and praying at night? And that's what this language is about. And I know this vocabulary seems difficult at first, but it is very purposeful, because vocabulary starts to become thoughts, and those thoughts start to become the reality of your life. So as you learn this vocabulary and realize it's helping me, it's teaching me, and thus why we started in meditation, to have a living relationship with my creator that's on this phone, on this teleconference right now with me, as I've asked my creator to be with me, guide me in that quiet moment. And then I always ask for God's will to be here, and I perform knowing that that's exactly what's happening. So therefore, it's not a question. I perform knowing that God's will is unfolding because I petitioned for it for me in this moment as I live this moment. And that's why it's so important to have that moment-to-moment communication. Now, remember, that's a building process. It's not something you hit a light switch and it just happens. That's why they start with meditation. So don't let it overwhelm you, and just know you're building into it. But the idea being that you'll be walking throughout your day all day long. I'd say, God, be with me. I'm sorry. I'm up to my old tricks. I'm getting angry again. I'm moody. I'm starting to think bad thoughts. Can you be with me? Can you guide my thoughts? Help me see this world the way you would have me see it. And then I'm brought back to that centered stillness, that point of balance one more time.
Well, and what we want to add to that too, for anyone who's on with us, and we know that some of you are new to this, so please understand that they use the word God. You can use the words universal source, all that is the divine, whichever is important to you. But what we also want to encourage you is to give us at least the summer. So last time we had a lot of people who were pretty excited. I heard from some of you on email about how wonderful these broadcasts were. Some of you were confused and said, this is pretty overwhelming. I'm not sure I get it. What I love what Frank just said. Frank says, what a great group of humans. So glad I found you. Well, Frank, we are delighted to have you here. What we want to encourage any of you is that if you're new to the Russell work, at least give us the summer. And remember, what we want you to do is tune into your heart. Your soul knows this knowledge. And actually, this is going to be a reminder of where we're going. And so, Karen, I'm going to ask you, if you would, over there on page 21, the first full paragraph, it starts with love is rhythmically repeated. If you could read just that first long sentence, you'll see I have it in the highlighted brackets there.
Way down there. Okay. Love is rhythmic, repeated in its giving and receiving to synchronize with the giving of your outward. Oh, great.
Go ahead. Go slowly, Karen. You don't have to rush.
I know, it's a personal problem. Re-giving to you balanced rhythmic interchange between your heartbeat pulsing and all other electric extensions from the stillness of your soul is law. The basic fundamental law of all created things in all of the dynamic universe. Does that work?
All right. So yes, we're working on it. We're all finding out the best way to be able to do this. And so, John, I want to ask you, because in that it talks about to synchronize the givings of your outward breath to the heavens and their regivings to you. So can you speak to a new student about what that really means? And then, James, we'll come back to the rest of the sentence because you all will see where I had a wow moment on this one.
Love is rhythmically balanced interchange. So if you'll just simply take a breath, you breathe in oxygen to live, and then there's just a slight pause. There's a slight rest before you exhale carbon dioxide, and that's you re-giving back to the universe that which you borrowed. And so when they say it's a rhythmic interchange, the pulse beat of the universe is a 1-2 pulse beat. And I wanted to go back to the little inscription under Ken's name, that love is work made visible, but also you could interchange the word that love is God made visible. Because without love, without that dynamic, rhythmic, two-way exchange, there is no physical universe. There is nothing for you to see. Nothing is happening. So anyway, just, I don't want our readers and our listeners to overcomplicate things. So just remember that it's a 1-2 pulse beat throughout the universe, and it's that simple.
Okay, so every time we breathe, what you're saying is every time we breathe in and out, we're actually living that 1-2 pulse beat of the universe. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So what's interesting for us as humans is we actually blow past this stuff all the time. And what I found so lovely about the Russell work is that it's all around us when we really begin to get it. Okay. And so John, I want to just ask you a question, and then Jim, I'm going to be coming to you for that last sentence on that paragraph on page 21, where it talks about the very measure of the quality. It's on that last sentence of the first paragraph. But John, I want to share with the audience right quick what life was like when I first met you that first year. So I'm not sure if there's a way to put just John and I on the screen, but I want to ask you, you saw how overwhelmed sometimes I would get when I would come in and you would give me all of this knowledge, and I could only take so much at a time, and then I would leave, and I would almost at times like say stop. It's like a little bit like taking a sip of water from a fire hose, or better, Niagara Falls. That's what sometimes it felt like. So I wanted to share that because I wanted other people to understand that sometimes when you first start, this is big, but it's more beautiful and more, we can understand it more as we go along. Can you comment?
Well, that is a commonplace thing with this message and with this knowledge. And the further along that you are, your first impulse is to share and to give out that which you know. And sometimes, maybe it should be filtered, maybe it should be a slower pace, right? And but I've found to look at a person's face, and then once that facial expression changes, then I know, okay, all right, we better stop here.
Well, I want to just remind everybody that we have almost 200 years of Russell student experience here on the screen. That's a lot of Russell experience. And so we've been receiving feedback from you all that you like where we're going, and you like how practical it is. And Jim, before I have you go to that sentence, can you talk a little bit about when you talk to people, you also kind of tune into where they are on receiving these lovely learnings?
Yeah, it's almost a constant with me. I have a hard time having conversations with anybody anymore where I don't bring up the universality of things, whether we're talking on the macro or the micro. And the simplicity of that universality is exactly what you guys are talking about. It's like an inward breath. Whether you're talking about the creation and the dissolution of an entire galaxy or that single breath itself, it's the same principle. The only thing that varies is the time interval that it takes place in.
Okay. All right. So, Jim, I'm going to have you end up reading that, but I want to say hello to Bonnie and want to say hello to Susan. Glad you all are commenting and joining us. So go to that last sentence where I had the wow, James, and it talks about the very measure, because I thought that was an incredible sentence.
The very measure of the quality of your material interpretations lies in your ability to translate imagined forms and rhythms of the universal heartbeat into bodily forms and rhythms which can re-inspire others with the ecstasy of your inspiration. And therein lies the difficulty in learning to manifest bodies that we truly want to manifest. We are in a constant state of manifesting concepts that we are not necessarily truly wanting to manifest by simple sayings like, that will never work. Well, I'll get even with that person. These are thought bodies. When you verbalize them, that's a thought body. And that thought body is born and it wants to live, and it's going to circle around until you void it. And this is what they're pointing out here. When you can so balance your thoughts and make your actions go out in a loving manner for self to manifest an idea by holding that light on that idea and to share that light and love with other people, they notice.
Yes.
You literally have people tell you, what is it that you mean by that? Where can I find out more about that? And that's beauty of it.
Well, I wanted to make this really clear, because this last sentence, and I wanted to explain why it was so powerful. So when you hear the language of translating imagined forms and rhythms of the universal heartbeat into bodily forms. So for me, I've had the lovely privilege to be able to publish a book for women. That was a gift of love. That was my taking 2 years of my time sitting down, pulling this together, and pouring a lot of love into it. And what it was is I actually was giving it form. And so I literally had the divine guidance. So I want to mention something. Darcy said here, she said she had a spiritual experience in 2009 that I had no vocabulary for until I found the Russell work. Very thankful. Darcy, there's a number of those kind of experiences here on the screen. But when we birth something, when we bring something into existence, I know Karen and I, this is part of why Karen even does her magazine, is that it re-inspires others with the ecstasy of your inspiration. And so I wanted to pause on that for a moment and ask if there were any other comments, because we don't have to make this language any harder than it is. It could be something simple like that. I know Jim is working on a book. I know Ken has created all kinds of things. Ken?
Yeah, I don't want people to get stuck in just thinking it's a body of work. They're also talking about rhythms. If you sit down and someone is low energy and they're not feeling good, and you talk to them and you help them to see the beauty in their life, and you help them to connect to their creator and to the things they love that they maybe have forgotten in that low state, you are uplifting all of humankind. And that is the same as creating a symphony. You are doing God's work. You are bringing love. You are giving love to someone, and it's being re-given to you when you see them go from a low place to a higher place because of the interchange you just had. So it's rhythm and product. It's not just one thing.
Love that. And that actually goes into the next paragraph when it talks about when you inspire others, you are manifesting the love nature of God and the fulfillment of his law by giving love. And then I'm going to skip down to that last highlighted portion of that page. You cannot re-inspire others, however, if you leave God, leave the divine out of your technical rendition. And so who on the panel would like to comment on that? And I'm even going to ask James to comment on that, because I do want to talk about how our giving to others does come in multiple forms. Who wants to start?
What page are you on there,
I'm
Sunshine?
on page 21. It's on the screen. Page
Kimberly,
21.
I'll tackle that.
All right, John,
So,
let's see.
When you're doing anything, whether you're creating, working, thinking, whatever it may be, love has to be in it. I'll never forget one time Jim and I were at the palace with Leo. We were in the kitchen. We were having a discussion, and she brought up how food tastes differently when it's made grudgingly and versus lovingly. And it's, that sounds simple, but that's what it is. And so when you put love into something, you're glorifying your creator. And that's all that it is. So when you're trying to inspire others, that should be your purpose, is put love in it. So what is that love? And that love is a demonstration of God. Period.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Anybody else want to comment on this particular idea? Yes, Karen.
I think the one thing that we should remember is when we look at our planet, we've been given beautiful trees and flowers and gardens and different landscapes and different ways to experience our world, and to not think that that's not God made manifest. And for us, it gives us clues into everything. So when we even look at rhythm, there's the rhythm in the ocean, there's rhythm in the sky, there's rhythm in electrical currents. Everything that God shows us is how to be in rhythm and to actually appreciate what he's gifted us, a garden to live in. And that should be the biggest demonstration of the beauty. That's just my thought.
And when you think about that from a profound perspective, and I'm coming to you, Ken, when you think about that from a profound perspective, when we really understand that nature is all about love manifest, we can walk through the world feeling that love. I was on a lovely walk not too long ago, and I hear from the other side quite often. I receive that intuitive guidance a lot, which I think is going to be happening to more and more people, as I know it happens to all of you there on the screen. But I actually was shown that even the spreading of ivy, you know how when you walk past something, the curb appeal of a house, and you see ivy just spreads, or it spreads around the tree. What I actually was told is watching that, every time you see every single leaf of ivy, that is love coming forth in the world. And it was a delightful, just kind of intuitive understanding for me, because now when I walk everywhere, I see love manifested. Ken?
Yeah, I would just go on over to 22 and reiterate a little more about how much of the audience is already doing a lot of the work. But if you're not aware of it, then you can't connect to it, right? And so connecting to it was really important for me, that this is something I can do, this is something that I can have. And it's about a daily application. So, how I bring it into my life, and like I said a minute ago, if I can bring a smile into someone's face, is that not the same as painting a beautiful picture in that moment? And that's a perfect moment. So this here on the top of 22, it says there from the sentence, not only every day should be started by seeking the zero of stillness, which means to quiet the mind down, unwind, but every moment from the beginning of anything to its fulfillment. Never start your day's work by yourself alone. Be sure that you feel the presence of your creator or God within you. If some disturbing thing comes up, and that's what Jim has brought up, things come up in life. And when they do, our job is to get back. Like I said, something disturbing for me is the way you drive your car. If I don't like the way, if you're not going fast enough, or you're going too fast or too slow, depending on where I'm at. All of a sudden, I've got a judgment for it. I got a comment, and it spins me into this state of mind where now my creator's gone, and all that's left is Mario Andretti. But the freeway's not where Mario Andretti drives. That's where race car drivers drive on racetracks, not on freeways. But in my mind, I'm Mario Andretti, and you're just in my way if I'm in that wrong state. So that's why it's telling me. So if something disturbing, telephone call or distraction severs you from your inner self, from the universal self, open up your door and let yourself out and let God in. Otherwise, your work or whatever you're doing will not be masterful. So it's like, that's it. It's not about perfection. The important thing is to know, though, I can get right back right now. I don't have to wait. I was off track 5 minutes ago. I can't control that. But what I can do right now is be back in a loving state and come from that state of love that my creator would want me to do. And that is my job in a moment to moment basis, because everything comes from that.
So I'm going to go to Jim and then Jackie. But while I do that, James, I'm going to ask if you can get ready. I want to show everybody in just a moment. We actually have a logo with the Awaken Your Inner Genius where the doors open. And I wanted to tie into what Ken just said about the doors opening, because there's a reason why we made the logo that way. So if James will search for that. John, where did you want to go?
Where did I want to go? Oh, I know what it was. That paragraph that Ken read. I wanted to say to my fellow panel members, now you know why I don't answer phone calls or emails or texts.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's why? Because you're always in zero stillness. Is that what you're saying, John?
That's it. I'm always connected. Then I have to disconnect to connect to you guys to disconnect.
There's so much I could comment on that, but that's okay. We're not gonna go there. Jackie, what do you want to add?
I just wanted to add that we are either guided by our senses or guided by our inner divinity. And in order to stay connected to that inner divinity, meditation is so pertinent. Even if it's just to stop for 2 seconds and say, okay, I'm there.
Can I ask sorry. I'm sorry, Jackie. Go ahead.
Okay.
The question I was going to ask it was just, and I want to ask you, Jackie, when you say guided by the senses, what, just for the people that are listening and for me and for anybody else, what does it mean when we say senses? What are we talking about?
I usually use the measurement of stress. If I'm doing something that's sense oriented and I'm stressed, I'm not there. I'm doing the job through my bodily function and my brain power. When I'm divinely connected, there's a flow. I get the job done. There's love poured into the job, no matter what it is, and there you can feel that connection. So I guess it's a stress meter.
So when you feel stressed, you feel you've gone back to your senses. Okay, that's good. I love that. That's good. Somebody else on what are the senses? What do the senses mean when we say we've gone back to our senses or with our creator? Senses, I think, is important to expand on what that means to each of us.
Look, you're either in a state of sensing or you're in a state of knowing. Body versus mind. You're not a body. You're not the body. You are mind. You're a microscopic dot of light centered in the pineal gland. That's where you are. So that's where you need to take control of your body, take control of your senses. And this body is a very powerful thing, and it will overwhelm you, and it will take you over if you let it.
All right, so when you talk about opening this door, James has the logo ready for us. So we want you all just to not blow past. Everything we do here at Awaken Your Inner Genius is very purposeful. And we do a lot of work with the University of Science and Philosophy. And I have an office there actually. And so what we're doing when we're bringing the Walter and Leo Russell works to you, we want you to understand that we're working, Jim and John and Jackie and Ken work very hard to keep us pure. So everything you see in logos and social media and everything, I mean, they're the first ones to say, no, that wasn't quite resilient enough, or change this, or update this. So we're working very hard. So James, why don't we show that? So Karen, you are our conceptual genius that helps us design a lot of these things. What were you trying to do when you opened the door? And then I'm going to go to some of the comments in the chat box.
Well, one, there's the two, like the male and the female, just like the screen where you see the blue and the red. And the other is opening the doorway to our consciousness, opening our minds, opening the portal to a deeper knowing of our existence. That was the intention behind that.
Love that. And I thought it was absolutely beautiful. So Darcy comments saying the spiritual experience that she referred to earlier in the chat box was complete knowing and the qualitative nature of the pulse of life, no sensation. Very powerful. I wish we could have you actually come on and talk about that. And Kathy, what she has to say is in our human day, we need to strive for balance rather than to excess. Let's try to be within reason with a governing mind over our lower thoughts. And she loves this discussion. So I wanted to, as John, I'm going to go to you in just a moment to page 23. So if you'll be taking a look about where you want to take us, I do want to end on page 22 with a very, very important very important quote, because if there was one thing that I would encourage a new student to write down, this is one of the comments, and it is illumine our paths with thy light. Illumine our paths with thy light. So that's the bottom of page 22 for anybody who has a copy of the home study course. We do encourage you all to get a copy whenever it is possible for you. We have the links below. But illumine my path with thy light. And so I thought that was such a beautiful way, no matter what someone's belief system was. And John, if you'll just comment for a minute before you take us to the next page. The Russells, for anybody who's missed our previous broadcast, they have a deep respect for many, many faiths across the world, right?
Yes. Well, illumine my path with thy light. So for the audience, perhaps they've never thought of it this way, but in creation, the light, I think it's 5,500 light. I'm trying to think of the word. The light spectrum, 5,500 segments. So try to think about that. And mankind can only see a certain number, 10, 12, maybe 15% of that light spectrum. So imagine what is and what is to come. So when you ask for God to illumine your path, can you, and know this, both Dr. Russell and Leo Russell were 360-degree cosmic conscious illuminate. So 360 means that while they were awake, they saw the entire light spectrum. Try to imagine your world to where you see that color happening every moment of every second of every day. And then you'll realize why geniuses have little patience for others.
Well, so I'm asking James to pull up one of Russell's scientific posters, and then I'm going to ask Jim to continue what John was just talking about. I want to say hello to Miss Ida, our sweet Ida from Indonesia, and I want to say thank you to Karen for putting that in the chat box. Illuminate my path with thy light. And so when we get ready to show you this God is Light poster, Jim, continue the conversation about this spectrum of light that John was referring to.
Well, it's exactly what he said and we'll get into this deeper into the sciences, but they teach in the sciences that the universe is a 360-degree cycle of light that is measured in 9 octaves, and those 9 octaves, everything that we know that exists. Everything that can become created is created. So it's a matter of understanding that we have limitations as embodied beings. Our bodies are limited. Our bodies are limited to about 14 to 18% of that light spectrum, but our souls are unlimited as to what they can know. So the more we work as a soul to commune with the greater self, the divine self, the more we of that spectrum we know. And once you
How do
know
you do
something,
that, Jim? How do you do that?
I do it by knowing that I can manifest whatever I want in my life. And I am one of those people that thoroughly believe, like it says in the Bible, that it was mine before I asked. If I hold the light of desire on it and do not falter, it will come my way. And that's the difference. What we tend to do is we get distracted by body desire, body sensation, body wants, body needs. And not only individually, but in group, we do this. And this creates conflict between us. So the concept of if groups got together only working to manifest divinity, which is love, in all that they do, instead of finding fault with each other, you'd be amazed what we could get done.
Wouldn't that be powerful? If we could take all the energy that we spend in the universe finding fault with each other and judging others and turning it into love, we could change the world instantly. So James has the scientific poster ready for us. This was the drawing. And John, if you would, I just wanted to show the audience on that top right, focus on the top right, what you were, if you can just point that out again. I want them to focus on what you were trying to say, where we can see the color spectrum there.
Right. So if you look at the top two squares, and then the one that's closer to the center. All right. So that is the average. That's the average person. That is your awareness of the world around you right there. And then if you look at the one on the top right-hand corner, that would be genius. And even it might be 5 degrees, 10 degrees, whatever it is, greater than the average person. All right. So a genius is able to see things, hear things, know things that the average person cannot. So that should be your goal in your meditation, in your prayer, in your doing, in your manifestation, is to try to gain a greater awareness of that light.
Okay, I thought this scientific poster, and John, when you were president of the USB, you actually placed that poster at the beginning of the scientific drawing room, and why was that?
Because I don't know if James could bring that back up or not, but just read the top. The science of the future is based upon God, the creator. God is light, God is mind. So that top left-hand corner, you see the one that's white, the undivided white light, the universal God mind. All right. And thinking, I don't know if people realize this, but thinking and desire is the most powerful thing in the universe. And thinking and desire is what divides the God white light into those colored spectrums that you see on the far right. And that's the sequence right there.
And so you placed it at the beginning because you felt that this one scientific poster, which can be ordered at philosophy.org, this one scientific poster that was done by Walter Russell, you felt that explained so much before you even walked into the scientific room, correct?
Right, because without God, there's nothing. There is nothing. So you have to start somewhere. So you might as well start with the big guy. All right.
Or the big woman. Okay.
Or the big woman. Yes, that's right.
They refer to the Mother, Father, Creator, John. I don't want to lose that.
Yes.
So
individual application.
Individual application. Well, and I bring this up because I'm gonna share with you all. I walked into that museum. Hello, Miss Peggy. Hello, Bruno. Sending you all much love as well. I walked into that museum a little injured from the way religions really worked very hard to erase the feminine. And so this has been part of what the Russell work has healed with me, is that I love the way they refer to the Mother, Father, God. I love the way they talked about the balance of the male, female. And I bring this up because this was important part of my evolution and opening up more and more to the light, was of not believing much of what I was taught growing up, is that women, I mean, so I'm going to ask Karen and Jackie to comment about that. Karen, you could comment on that notion of the balance of the mother, father, or feminine, masculine.
Well, first, I want to speak to the other thing really quick, because when I saw the poster, we are nothing but beings of light. We come from that divided light. We are literally human. We are part of that hue that creates our reality. And each one of us has our own sphere around us. So when you look at those little connecting dots and you look at the circles, we all have a circle around us. We all have a magnetic field, and we're all collecting and connecting our dots. And how we interchange with one another makes a huge difference, whether we amplify something or we consolidate. And I think the other thing that I just want us to think about, the being in your body. We've been given an electric body to sense our reality. And I think sometimes it gets charged, and sometimes it isn't necessarily positive, but it is a guider. And then when you have those moments, be able to go back to God thinking, when you're actually flustered or whatever, to go back to source, you can get yourself back. But your senses in itself aren't necessarily always bad. You can walk down the street and see the beauty in it. It gives you that sense of ecstasy. So you don't want to just say that my sense body is horrible. No, my sense body senses the beauty. And that's the sensing God. So sometimes I think Jim wants to say something to that, but I just want to make sure that we just don't think our body is always, that sense body doesn't have a purpose.
Very wise. Jim?
I'm good.
Okay. Jackie, okay. Jackie, you wanted to chime in, and then I'm going to ask.
Well, I kind of wanted to put out there a little bit from the last conversation on that some people see auras, and I think that's the beginning of being able to open to a fuller spectrum within each our bodies. You know, people just sometimes just see the light around them. Some people actually see colors, and I think that's an opening in itself. But the male-female balance that we have, I'm not sure what you're referring to, the one within us, or the couple thing, or balance male and female in business, which is needed. Not necessarily a woman being a man in a business, but balancing that feminine ideas and creativity in a business, and having that accepted and thought about. And because the male is more like the war nature of everyone within us, and the feminine is like, well, let's just wait and see. Let's look at it this way, or let's look at that, and probably drives the male crazy for them doing that, but I'm not sure what you were asking.
I was just talking about the I'll ask others in the chat box then. I was just talking about the healing. So what I found with Russell students that have done this for almost 30, 40, 50 years is that they have this natural understanding that there's the balance of the male female. That was not the religion that I was brought up in. I was brought up in Christianity, okay, that there wasn't a balance. It wasn't a balance. It was always the masculine that was the direction. So I was just talking about the healing. That's part of what I find so beautiful about this work. So I want to mention two things, and then I'm going to ask Ken to be ready to take us somewhere on page 23. I try to manage the time so we get through the whole unit, the whole lesson by the end of our time. I want to go back to something that Rita said. And John, I'm going to ask if you could respond to this. Rita said, the sentence at the bottom of that poster is concerning, even chilling. And so let's go back and actually read that sentence. So John, can you see that?
Okay, I'm going to say
science has built a strange universe from sensed evidence and has been mightily deceived. What does that mean?
Well, what that means is that the scientific community, mankind, what they've done is, what man has discovered and what man knows is through trial and error, through his senses, experimentation. All right. And so the genius doesn't experiment with anything. the genius knows and brings that knowledge forward without asking for anything in return.
Okay. Well, and can you mention that quote you told me in the very first time I ever met you about the fact that it was something about you you can't have a poem without a poet. You cannot have writing without an author, but you talked about how we've taken the creator out of creation. What was that quote?
I'm not sure what you're referencing there, but I love that statement because, right,
You're the
if you take
one.
in science, right. So what the scientific community has done is they fail to recognize that there is a creator. See, and so what they do is they dwell in the created side and not the creator side. There's cause and there's effect. And the scientific community gets wrapped up in the effect without ever knowing the cause. And that's what that bottom statement means.
All right, so we're going to continue. Karen, if you'll say something, and then I'm going to make an invitation to our audience, and then I'm going to hand it over to Ken to take us on page 23. Karen?
I'll be quick. It's Tesla said one person calls it God, another calls it physics. So when you actually realize that God is the master creator, and when you work knowingly with God, things work. And that having worked with a lot of sciences in the back rooms, they'll all tell you they get their downloads. So
okay, so they actually receive inspiration. What we're talking about is they receive some kind of downloads or illumination. Absolutely. So I want to invite all of our viewers right quick. If you're finding this discussion interesting, if you would, please go ahead and send the link to others. Maybe post it on your social media. Have us have more people join in so we can continue the conversation. We're almost to 100 subscribers here on the YouTube channel, and it is our goal to continue increasing this awareness. So to keep us moving here on lesson 2, Ken, where do you want to go on page 23 as we pull that up?
I got marked here. Actually, I got 3 of them marked. I would like this very top sentence here that's underlined. It says, naturally, your inner ears cannot hear the answer except in the silence of the light of inspiration. And that's in reference to when you pray or meditate. Try not to think you're going to get a billboard sign run across the front of your frontal cortex that's going to tell you God telling Casey do this or Ken do this, do that, do this. It comes throughout the day and inspiration and unfolds. So it's naturally, so your inner ears, when you're asking for something, there's the inner ear and there's the inner eyes, right? We all can know it. Close your eyes and you can see what you were doing last month, last year on vacation. That's your inner eyes looking, and your inner ears is the time when you hear things. And somebody says to me, when they tell me, I just want you to know, I've never asked them. And the first thing one of the things they said is, just so you know, I never lie. Well, my inner ears tell me that if I didn't ask the question, you're probably then you're referencing something inside of you that means that you probably do lie, right? So that's my inner ears, learning to listen to the inner ears and to see the unseen and hear the unheard. This is that vocabulary again. But it will make so much sense so soon. And that's why I keep talking about my application, how I bring this into my life rather than telling people or teaching people what I think this is. I'm trying to tell you what's happened from my life, how I brought it in, and how it organically grows in each and every one of us. And nobody can keep you away from this knowledge and becoming this knowledge. It's purely up to each and every one of us. So I would encourage everyone to have a home study course. And then once you come on to this podcast, overview, then the week following before the next podcast, review what we've read and see if you can connect some of those dots that we were talking about, and then come back with questions maybe that of an understanding of your own application and of how do I apply that. That's why I asked the question, when you say senses, what does that mean? Right? What does the senses mean? I still haven't heard a real good answer. I'd love to hear an answer. Anybody got one?
I thought we
Well,
covered that already, Ken.
yeah, we talked about that, but we'll continue as Ken's given the challenge to everybody else in the comment box. If you want to add in, what does it mean about this whole idea of the senses? I want to keep us going because we have a lot more pages here, and I want to have a point out a couple of things here on page 23. The inner ears that Ken is referring to, you'll see in the first highlighted sentence there in yellow. It talks about be so attuned to the universal soul that your inner ears can hear that answer in the universal language of light. And I thought that was really, really a beautiful sentiment. And if you'll see the highlights there in the third paragraph, it says it will become a working habit. And then I was inspired in that last sentence and the next sentence that I highlighted. A cosmic thinker can instantly decentrate to the zero of light of all knowing, whether he is in a subway or in a forest. And this is what Ken is talking about, practicality. So why don't we ask the panel right quick, and I'm also going to ask James, how do you train yourself to decentrate to that point of zero that's referred here? And I want to tell you about the t-shirt story in just a minute. Who wants to chime in first? All right, please jump all
on John Ponzel.
Okay. That statement is for such a very few people on this planet that can actually do that. Now you think about it for a minute. If you're riding on a subway bus and the noise and the confusion and the people, and you're packed in there like sardines, and for you to be able to zero out and forget that you're even there, forget that you're in your body, I mean, that takes training. You know, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, just like anything, whether it's in business or if it's in sports. You know, it's training and it's good habits.
Darcy is making
what that is.
Comments in the chat box, John. If you'll take a look even there at the comments, I'm talking about the normal state for us is zero. So I'll have to respectfully disagree with you, John. Don't throw anything at me across the ethers here.
Yeah.
But I believe everyone has the ability to train themselves to be able to go to that zero point of stillness. And we're talking about that point of application. So Jim and Jackie, I'm going to ask you, when you are in the midst of something, how do you stop yourself to go back to that zero point of stillness? Practical application.
You literally do just that. You know when you're out of balance. Now, it can build up a momentum when you're responding to something through anger or frustration, and it can take you off point. But the way back is to focus on, I am fully capable and prepared through my divine source to manifest this body or this action that lies before me. If I am doubting that, then I am out of sync. I am living through the sensed body. I am denying my divinity and my ability to awaken my own inner genius. And this happens. I've said to people for years and years and years, there's nobody that can stand before me and convince me that I am this body that I center. This body is a tool, and as Karen said, a magnificent tool to manifest. But I am not this body, and I would stand firm on that all day long until I'm in my shop and I hit my thumb with a hammer. Now, for the next few minutes, you're going to have a hard time convincing me I'm not that body. And that's the senses that we're talking about. The body senses can be overwhelmed to the point that we call it pain, frustration, anger, and hatred. When we find ourselves slipping into those emotions, those thoughts, emotion, they're not balanced. We go towards center where balance is, and that voids all things. The last thing I want to say here is please, as we talk about masculine, feminine interaction, there's always going to be those that repress the feminine in themselves first. We all have feminine, masculine, and then as they repress the feminine in themselves, their dominant male nature becomes repressive. I've watched the feminist party come in. There's people within the feminist party that are so angry that they repress the masculine in themselves, and then they want to destroy the masculine in the world. This does not accomplish the goal. The goal is to manifest divinity. And as you in your feminine, masculine natures settle that down and go towards center and manifest divinity, each is voided in the other. That's what true love is. That's the divine marriage. And when each is void in the other, you become one with divinity.
So let's talk about that from a very practical perspective. So Ken and I are in a relationship, and let's say we have a very spirited conversation. And so when we talk about in that moment of going to zero stillness, I saw that Darcy was talking about going. Kathy was saying use the breath. For me, at any moment, many times I'll ask for a moment. The few times, not many, no offense, hon. The few times I will ask for a moment, and I need to go out in the breath and commune with the out. For me, it's not just the breath, it's going outside and breathing in the oxygen, tuning into the universal heartbeat, and taking a moment to open up the light that I know I have access to and ask for, go into a complete zero point and have that divine guidance coming through. Now, that's whether I'm in a business meeting, that's whether I'm in an airport, because we constantly are having people be able to be very busy, is the point that you made. And Kathy's talking about the breath will take you back to oneness. But for me, it's not just the breath. I need the oxygen. I need going outdoors. And so I want to just simply bring that up to all of us, because I do find that I believe this world, this matrix, as I've come to refer to it, is actually designed to try to keep us inside. So we're outside of we stay away from the oxygen. I find I have much more clarity. And then I'm going to ask if any of you to comment on that. Much more clarity when I am actually having to breathe in that outdoor oxygen. But because we still have many more pages to go, I do want to bring up something. When I read that sentence about a cosmic thinker can instantly decentrate to the zero of light, John, I was inspired. I was thinking about you and how you always were giving me cheeky one-liners, okay, about the Russell work. And so I thought of you, and Karen and I today, we designed a t-shirt because I thought we needed a t-shirt to help us remind us of this. And so James is going to bring up a t-shirt here, and I want to hear from the audience whether you would want this t-shirt. If you were walking around and saw this t-shirt, would it make you pause for a moment and go back to that zero point of stillness? James, if you'll roll, and James, if you'll come off mute, because what did you say when you saw this t-shirt?
Oh, I liked it. I thought that it was really simple and to the point.
So when we were texting, so John, this was made in honor. It says,
when you had the idea of having a shirt, yeah, I said I wanted a shirt.
He said, I want a shirt that says "Be a Cosmic Thinker," and
these jeans too.
We quickly manifested an idea, bringing a thought to form. To show some of the other images as well, is that and let us know what you think in the chat box. But we just had a little fun with this of saying, wonder what it'd be fun to have us begin to slow down and say, be a cosmic thinker. And it actually says, awaken your inner genius there. So John, that was designed in honor of all the times I've heard you come up with just one sentence. It says, Darcy, be a cosmic thinker. And then it has the big words cosmic in the middle. And at the bottom, it says, awaken your inner genius. No commentary from the Peanut Gallery, John?
Cosmic. Well, some people don't even know what that means. Cosmic. So cosmic means the entirety, everything, as far as you can go. So be a cosmic thinker.
Well, I like that phrase, John, because with all of you that are long-term Russell students, I almost felt like at the first year, I wanted to play Russellian bingo. You all will bring up quotes. I'll hear Ken bring up a quote. I'll hear Jim or Jackie bring up a quote. John, and I was like, wow, that's just so cool. And I was like, couldn't wait to study hard enough so I too could play the Russellian bingo. So that's where the t-shirt idea came from.
We were talking about body. So here's a t-shirt for you. God doesn't mind because you're not matter.
All right. So we're going to have a little t-shirt competition here. Here's where we're going. I actually think Leo would find this amusing. So Bonnie said in response to that particular t-shirt, she said, you'd have to educate half the world what a cosmic thinker is. Some people will think it's going to be a big grocery store. So, there we go. So, Ken, if you
cosmic thinker can hear the unheard and see the unseen. That would be a real good way to say what a cosmic thinker is.
I do have a comment on the last subject before the t-shirts.
Sure.
About the centering and sense oriented. It's when you're working on something, or you're driving your car, or you're going in the grocery store, let's say, and something tells you to go down this one particular aisle. If you were that divinely guided, you would do that. But a lot of us would just like, I don't need anything down that aisle. Why should I go down the aisle? I'm not going to go down there, and never go. So you miss what you might have received and from that encounter. But it happens all the time to all of us.
It does happen all the time. And I almost think of it like divine appointments. I even called Ken the other day. I was going to rent a car in Denver. I was in Denver this week, couldn't get the car in the automatic checkout. So I had to go to the window, and I gave the woman my member number, and it has letters and numbers. And she went, "That's very strange. Your member number is exactly my initials, my first, middle, and last initial, and my birthday."
Oh my gosh.
And so I thought about that, Jackie, because I was nudged not to blow past, just fixing the car to go to the window. And it made me wonder what kind of divine appointment. Ken, in fact, I called Ken shortly after that, because when I got in the car, there on the screen, you know how sometimes when you rent a car, it shows all the iPhones that were connected. There it said Jesus's iPhone. So I was like, wow, we're in the middle of all kind of fun stuff today.
Kimberly, I would like to give a name to what Jackie was talking about, and this is important. What she's referencing is the silent voice within.
Yeah.
And that silent voice within is God. It's the universal spirit guiding you. And so what we do is we allow our body, we allow our brains to contradict that most of the time. And I'm sure people listening and tuning in have done exactly that. That silent voice told them to do this, and they decided to ignore it, did something else, and it didn't work out so well.
Very true.
It's
All right.
doubt.
So to the team, I want you to know we still have several more pages. So I'm going to ask Ken if he would to move us on to page 24. Our hopes are that we're going to get through lesson 2. So where do you want us to go, Ken?
Okay, I would love for us to go to I would say the second paragraph for me. Every indentation is a paragraph, so you got one indentation, second indentation. Whatever you wish to become, you may become. If you create your own personality alone by yourself, it will have all the weaknesses of the senses. Going back to that word again of what are the senses. The more you ask God to help you, the more I ask God to help me make myself into God's image or my Creator's image, the more power of God's mind or my Creator's mind I will have to fashion myself into a powerful individual. When my nature and God's nature are one, I will then be a man of cosmic power, and my creations will manifest God's nature and my nature as one. So to me, that the thing that I was trying to get to, you guys, when I said the senses, is what am I up against? Now, I said a sample of a freeway. I talked last week about a grocery, 10 items or less line when you go to the grocery store, how I'm counting, if I'm in the wrong state or I'm in a bad mood, I'm counting how many products you got in your basket. So what am I up against? Well, science, which we can use some of it in a linear form, has proven that the brain, we're not talking about the mind, right? To me, the best way I can relate is you can weigh your brain, but you can't weigh your mind. But the brain has 70,000 thoughts a day. That's the awareness, right? That's what I'm up against. 70,000 thoughts a day, as I just described. And if I've been harnessing those thoughts through my life, by myself, in of myself, then all of my weaknesses of myself are in there. So I had to become aware of when my mind, my thoughts, my thought life started to go in the gutter. That's what they're talking about. Why we keep talking about constant communion. Why do I need to be in constant communion? Because my thinking goes in the gutter if I don't have it. My thinking takes a
For some of us, Ken, you're totally right. For some of us, it might go in the gutter. For some of us, it might just go off the side of the road.
I'm just talking about myself. That's what I'm sticking to. I'm not talking about what you need to do or what anybody needs to do. I have to develop an awareness of that thought life. And when I just asked my creator, God, divine creation, he, him, her, I asked, can you just show me when my thinking, when when I start to think in the gutter, when I start to go into the gutter with my thinking? I got to tell you, that day was one of the most amazing days of my life, because I realized why I had not
Okay.
achieved the things in life that I achieved for so long, because my thoughts were just riddled with finding fault with people, tearing people down, looking at people about the way they dress or the way they didn't dress, looking at the people the way they drove their car, didn't drive their car, like I said, let alone when I get to work. You know, the boss
right.
shouldn't be the boss. I should be the boss. I got a mind, a thinking brain that can take off, and it surpasses all that and puts me in the gutter of life. And then the
Okay.
world I live in is a world I don't want to live in. I heard you okay the first time. The world that I live in is a world I don't want to live in. This message we're talking about, right? What we're doing is we're a group of people that are talking about, we found a world we do want to live in. And the way that I was transported there was through this message and learning how to have a divine relationship that goes on moment to moment. Every single moment is my ideal, even in this conversation, while I listen and while I talk on this podcast.
All right. So Karen, if you would chime in. If you would, and I'm going to ask Jim to take us to page 24, and John, if you'll get prepared to take us to page 25 in just a moment. Karen, when we're talking about that whole issue of cues and what Ken was just saying, what do you want to comment in? Because I know you've been making a lot of comments there in the private chat to us just about this whole notion of the thinking that we're referring to. And there's a lot of great comments in the public if you want to refer to some of those, Karen, because they're having a good time.
Yeah, I think Ken left me speechless. So
We can do that.
No, just laughing. Okay, I'm going to pass at the moment. I'm just
Okay.
catch my little.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So Jim, if you would, where do you want us to go on page 24? And then I'm going to ask John for page 25 and 26.
You just want me to pick a place on 24?
Where would you like us to go on page 24? There's always so much to be said there. Is there anything else that needed to be said on that page before we have
All
John?
right. Yeah, I'd love to read the third paragraph.
Okay.
But I also want to point out that for me, what Ken said is profound, because that is the battle every day. To not let our brain recordings run the day, but seek to have divinity walk with us throughout the day. And it's that simple. It's that hard, but it's that simple. And as we meditate and work with that divine, it becomes easier over time.
Yep.
Easier to get back and far easier to forgive yourself. So anyway, very well said in my book, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you,
He's
Joe.
got a book.
So that
I'm
third
writing it. Right, yeah.
paragraph, Jim, what did you want to bring
Whatever
up?
you wish to become, you may become. If you create your own personality alone by yourself, it will have all the weaknesses of the senses. The more you ask God to help you to make yourself into His image, the more power of His mind you have to fashion yourself into a powerful individual.
Now
Isn't
that's
that
what we were talking about, wasn't it, Jim?
Yeah, we
Yes,
just read that.
we just went over. I read the same thing. I'm sorry. I thought I thought it sounded familiar as I was going through.
That's the thoughts that
But
Ken's talking about. So many thoughts a day.
Right, their point here and Ken's point here is that we can transform ourselves into being a powerful and creative individual by knowing that we can, with the help of our source through meditation. We can do it.
Okay.
Kimberly?
Okay.
Read the next.
Yeah.
Kimberly?
So, yes, you want to comment and then take us to page 25?
Well, what I wanted to bring to people's attention was the paragraph following what Jim just read. Our very name for God's creation is nature.
Yes.
And so all illumined beings, all cosmic thinkers seek the stillness of nature and the quietness of nature. And that's where the 1-2 pulse beat is. And then they further describe what nature is. And I just thought that's beautiful. That sums up it simplifies for people, where they're reaching out thinking, okay, what are these guys talking about, this and the God, the undivided and all this. But nature is God. If you could make that analogy in your thinking, it would
Yes.
move you along.
That's part of what I love so much about the Russell work is it actually capitalizes nature, and we talked about that even in the other one. So on page 25, John, is there anywhere that you want to go? In fact, when you go to that next page, James, you'll see where I put a heart behind the very thing that Ken opened up with us with a meditation earlier today. What do you want to bring up? And I also, just to make a point to you, I highlighted the word genius because I wanted people to see how often the word genius is mentioned in the home study course.
Are you speaking to me, Kimberly?
You, John, anything you want to bring up on page 25?
I do. And I want to bring up the last few. And for our audience, those that have the home study course or will acquire one, pay close attention when the Russells underline something, because it's very important. And so at the top of the page there, the last part of that sentence, in other words, God is love and matter manifests love. And that's the simplicity of nature. It's the simplicity of creation right there.
Love that. Beautifully said. So why don't we go ahead and scroll down there to page 26. I want to be respectful for anyone who's on with us. We are going to stay afterwards. Do remember we have another 15 minutes of this show. So if the panel would be thinking about what's important to them over the next few pages, there's always a great debate about how to pace this. And so please give us your feedback. While we're interacting with all of you, we're also in a private chat trying to keep up and move through the lessons. And you may give us feedback that you'd like us to spend two particular sessions on one lesson. So we're all in a learning curve together. And so I want to say thank you to our YouTube people that are tuned in, to the folks from my Facebook page, from the folks that are from some of our other Facebook page, along with any of our Twitter folks, and our I forgot what the other ones were there. But over there on page 26, what do we need to bring up, Ken? That's over there on page 26. That's important for our audiences.
I really like going down the bottom there. You did say Ken, correct?
Yes, I said Ken.
The bottom there, it says, it is purely an ecstatic state of knowing without meaning. And I love that because I wanted to have a grasp of what is the state of creation's mind, divine mind, God's mind. And the Russell cosmogony talks about the state of God's or divine mind is a perpetual state of ecstasy. Ecstasy is a brilliant word. It means exceedingly content and fulfilled. So that's how I know I'm with my creator, I'm with divine mind, is because there's a feeling of contentment and fulfillment in the moment I'm in. Remember, perfect moments happen in the in-between moments of life. Perfection in a perfect moment is timeless. It doesn't have an hour clock to it. Whether it's a smile from your kid, your puppy, or it's going over to John's ranch and drawing concentric circles and putting the 9-octave wave out there, right? Each one of those is a way of expressing that love and that divine love of knowing that's inside of us. So the ecstasy, when I watch John work, I have an opportunity to know him personally, and over at his ranch where he's constantly doing, but he's doing it with love. And he has ecstasy in the silliest things, like picking weeds. I mean, he sits down there and it's like he gets a pad out, he gets a little brick out. Hey, Ken, let's have some lemonade. Let me get you an Arnold Palmer and get on your knees and start pulling some of these weeds. But we do it with love, and there's a sense of fulfillment, right? Like, how can I have such a good time doing work? Is because we're having fun doing it. We're not doing it begrudgingly. We're doing it in that sense of ecstasy, exceedingly content, fulfilled, and we're putting love into it. Just put love to it, and that's how you get to that ecstatic state. And one more thing before I go on that note, when you're meditating, remember that when you go into stillness, that the state of God's mind is a perpetual state of ecstasy, and you'll know you've hit it because you feel a sense of ecstasy within. Now you know you're there. And it's not about time. It's just about touching that moment of perpetual ecstasy that's there for each and every one of us, every moment of every day.
So in our chat box here, we have a couple of things. Karen has a great comment that came up. And James, I want to ask you for just a moment if you want to chime in on anything that we've just talked about before we go on to page 27. So John, if you'll take a look at page 27. But Karen's comment says, I never got that before. God is love and matter, manifest love. And I thought that was really beautiful. And Jim, I know for you, that's something that you're really trying to have people understand.
Absolutely. It is the sole, for me, the sole purpose of existence, no matter how many incarnations it takes the individual or the group of humanity to get there, is to manifest that divinity. And there's no stopwatch. You can take as long as it takes. If you need 100,000 lifetimes to come to that realization, fine. Some people can do it in one. Some people fall into that ecstasy that Ken's talking about. And for me, that is an eternity, even if I hold it but a few seconds. That is an eternity, because I experience something when that happens that is so beyond words. And I just wish that everyone could experience that at least once in their life.
Thank you. Karen, you wanted to chime in?
I like the one comment that I saw there is it's so true. When you give your love and your passion to your work, you're contagious. And it's beautiful. And the other thing that when you're in meditation and you get that aha moment and that little voice comes and talks to you, that's when you know you're in communion and that the next idea is there. It is being in touch with the divine. And that is when you get a smile on your face and there's that moment of ecstasy. It's like, all right, that's the next thing to go to. So
you hear what she just said? I'm going to jump in here for a second, Karen. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Said that every living being can have a one-on-one relationship with the ecstasy of the divine.
Absolutely.
If that doesn't free your mind, nothing will.
Well, people forget that there's, where everything is the wave. We know the raws will work, and when the waves hit and the particles collide, they come to light. So as you and that little light being are dancing together, and you're in that moment of joy, you spark each other, and it's true. So, okay. And we do that every day when we actually give love to things.
All right, so James, I'm going to ask you to comment before John takes us to page 27 or 28, and then I'm going to ask Ken to help us wrap up here on page 29. What kind of comment do you have as a young father of 4 children, and how you're listening to this conversation?
I think even just for a practical point with putting love into your work and choosing things in your life to pursue that pull you into them. So many things take so long before you actually bear fruit and see results. And so many times we are outcome dependent and we want to get to the outcome. We want to get to the fruits of that work. And so if you are not able to put love into your work, or you choose the wrong thing that just doesn't naturally draw you in, you're not going to get to that outcome. You're going to be so connected to the outcome and to bearing the fruits of that thing that you're just not going to stick it out. Some things take months, some things take years. I practice jujitsu. It takes 10 years to get a black belt. It takes a year or 2 years before you even begin to grasp the fundamentals. And the first thing we tell people when they come in, they immediately want to get a submission. They immediately want to get they want to get the thing that ends the fight. And we tell them position before submission. And you have to feel. It's about feeling. It's about sensitivity. It's not necessarily about the specific technique. So just for a practical point, if you don't have love for the thing you're doing, you're just not going to put yourself in a position long enough to bear the fruit, and you're not going to have luck on your side over time. That's right. Just the thing.
Ties back to that picture of the lemon tree earlier about it's just the tree won't come to fruition. So, John, we're here down to our last 6 minutes. Where do you want to take us here on page 27 and 28? And Ken will wrap us up on page 29.
Yes, there's a couple sentences that I want to just read here. And the one is at the bottom of 27, and then the next one will carry over to 28. And this is a great summation of this chapter of meditation, of mind versus the body.
You're on page
You and
27?
every, yeah,
20,
bottom of 27.
27. Okay.
Going into 28.
Yes, you and every other man are slaves to your bodily senses until knowledge gives your mind mastery over them. And we're going to drop down, last sentence 27, carry over 28. Meditation is the basis for intercommunication between your immortal mind and the electric senses of your mortal body. And now we don't use those terms, or we haven't very much in our discussion, but immortal and mortal, and that those are two words that will allow people to have that separation: your mortal body versus your immortal self, and that's a great way to divide it out.
Love that. Love that. And do you understand, anybody who's online with us, we are going to in fact stay on after we show you the video gift that Karen made for us. And so if you have questions, we're going to test that out and see if there's questions. And if there's not, we'll wrap it up. But Ken, where would you like to take us here over on page 29?
On 29, it really is great. This talks about how God creates the universe. Right here, it's underlined, first paragraph. All matter is but electric wave pulsations of his thinking. This is 29, first paragraph, of his thinking, recording the idea of his thinking in form which appears, disappears, and reappear to synchronize with the cyclic sequences of his concentrative, decentrative, and reconcentrative thinking, which characterize the entirety of the fact of this dynamic universe of his creating. That's it. Let's go home. No, I'm just kidding. So that sounds so complex. That sounds like algebra. That's like spiritual algebra, but it's not. It really is not. And this is where it brings it home. God is eternally creating the universe, is the result of his eternal continuous meditation and desire to manifest idea. And that is exactly how we work. And this is communion with God in meditation. This is the very bottom of 29, the last paragraph. Communion with God in meditation will not only mold your desires in harmony with the divine law, but will give you knowledge of the nature of God, which will become your nature to the extent that you reflect God's nature. Your desires will also reflect God's nature. This should be our constant endeavor, for its supreme attainment is the ultimate goal. So in reality, and what that means to me is that, right, I'm a big golfer, and I wanted to create a perfect hip turn. And I just kept thinking about it. I've been in this message, so I started getting quiet. I went to stillness with God, and I started pounding that idea in my mind, like Tesla talks about. I started seeing it in my mind, and lo and behold, did I get an image. It was a timeless image. It was a full image of exactly what I wanted to create to help to assist in the turning of the hips of the lower body in the golf swing. So when I got that, when I was able to get there, I realized there was and seeing it was an ecstatic state. I felt so ecstatic. Like I just saw that. I know what to do now. It took me 2 years to create a prototype, but the idea was instantaneous. And that's that communion. And I also want to encourage people to realize you've done it many times in your life. Anything you put love into, if you put love into your food, that food has love into it. If you put love into your gardening, that garden has love in it. If you put love into talking to someone, that person now has just been injected with your love, which is one love. We're all love. And that awakens that love in them, and it reawakens that love in you as a mirror reflects itself in each other. It's not as complicated as we would make it, but God creates the same way we create. And that's why I find this beautiful, meaning I come up with an idea, then it's just an idea until I put thought energy into that idea and breaking it down of how I can put that idea together to bring it into the three-dimensional world and actually create a product or an inspiration of a speech or a talk or something I want to get across to someone that I've become aware of, like those 70,000 thoughts that I had to start becoming aware of, how to hand them over to my creator and to be in alignment with God's thinking, not my thinking.
Sure. So we're down here at the 8:30 mark. I was going to ask everybody for a comment, but we'll save that for the end of the Q&A section. Right now, what we'd like you to do is to sit back and relax and enjoy the gift that Karen has brought for us. It's a visual journey of Unit 1 and see what kind of questions it has, and we'll be ready to reconvene and see if there are any questions from the audience. Enjoy. Just breathtaking, Karen. Just breathtaking. So I'm going to ask everybody on the panel to respond to this work of art before we go into the Q&A. But Karen, I wanted to find out from you, what inspired you? You are, even though you've studied the Russell Works for 13 years, this is the first time you've been through the home study course. What inspired you to pull that together?
When I learn better when I'm kind of, one, it's repetition, and two, it's the beauty in the art and trying to get the feeling. That's how I remember it better. And it actually, for me, it takes me into actually practicing, taking the words and practicing, and then I think about it and I become more deliberate and more conscious. So for me, it's a part of the study. It's part of making it come alive for myself.
Well, and I've known Karen to be literally a visual genius since I've had the pleasure of crossing paths with her when John first told us about her. And so John, why don't you respond first? What's your response to the video?
I just want to come through the camera and give Karen a big hug and kiss. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Love it. Jim and Jackie?
I thought it was a nice little reminders, little tidbits that you can pick out and absorb, and that's always nice to be refreshed with something simple.
Yes, Jim.
I agree. It was pleasant. It was easy to follow, and I'm not the fastest reader in the world. And in almost every case, I was able to read what was on screen.
Well, and to that point, Jim, this video is actually on our YouTube channel, Awaken Your Inner Genius, and you can go back and look at it anytime, and you can pause it, take a still screenshot of whatever it is, and go back and see it as many times as you like. So please, Karen, notice all the beautiful comments that are in the chat box. Ken, what was your response?
I don't know if he has one. I think it's been days.
Okay, I think maybe there's a... Okay, so there might be a glitch there. If James, what was your response to the video when you first saw him?
I thought it was cool to be able to sit back and experience part of the home study course in a visual manner, and I love it when somebody interpolates or interprets things in not necessarily even their own way, but brings different ways of consuming something. Not everybody really wants to read, even though the best way to consume the home study course is to read it. It adds another element to the first unit.
Yes, and so Karen, I want to say a heartfelt thank you. Part of why you're on the team, we were very careful in how we crafted pulling this team together, and Karen offered such a feminine, I thought, such a feminine perspective of how the work came together. Ken, are you back with us?
Yeah, I don't know why I cut out. So yes, I'm just coming right back on.
All right. So can you just comment on your response to the video, and then we'll take a few questions from the audience before. I think we lost Ken again. There must be an internet issue. All right. So any questions that we have in the comments before we finish up here? We were committed to keeping these broadcasts to 90 minutes. Do bring up Susan's comment there. I love that. Absolutely beautiful. Thanks for all your hard work. I'm not creative, but learn the same as you do. Thank you. Dana says, absolutely brilliant. We'll bring up that comment. Karen works knowingly with God. And she gave us some suggestions for improvement. So thank you. For Peggy, thank you. This was awesome. And so we continue to take all of your feedback. So if there's not any questions tonight, I'll give it just 2 or 3 minutes to see if there's any questions. I don't want to keep everyone on here unnecessarily, but we did have some questions come up after the broadcast last time. Any thoughts or questions from our audience? Okay. So seeing no questions, we're going to simply take that as it goes along. Please know that next Sunday we'll be doing Unit 1, Lesson 3. So for those of you that have a copy, please, are you going to put it on YouTube? Karen, yes, we absolutely, the video you just saw is already on YouTube on our channel. Jean says, I started to ask if we can view it later, but I already answered it. So please, any other questions that you have. We want to say a gracious thank you to the entire audience and to the entire panel. A lot of work goes into preparing these things each week, and I want to say a gracious thank you. Any final comments from our panel? John?
I wanted our audience to be aware that we're just at the introduction stage. And if you're feeling it now, wait until we get into the meat of this message, and it'll literally blow people's minds, and it's something wonderful to look forward to.
All right, final comments, Jim.
The liberation factor, I agree with John. What happens as you move through this course day after day and year after year, eventually there's a liberation in your thinking and an empowerment that you take on toward life that is insurmountable. And I've never seen anything I have read extensively throughout my life that gives it in the way that this course makes you aware.
Love that. Jackie, final thoughts?
Well, I'm stuck on that scientific thing that makes it simple later on in the course. So it probably should.
All right.
It's
We'll
matter is voided as it occurs, is recorded as it is voided, and is repeated as it is.
Yeah, that is a big concept, Jackie. We're gonna see where that comes
Well,
up.
he said it, but in more words. So I mean, they said it. So it was just sticking in my head, and I'm thinking it out like a song, you know.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me share that.
Karen, we'll ask for your final comment, and then John, we do have a question coming in for you. So Kathy, please go ahead and place that in the chat box. For anybody else that needs to tune out, we completely understand this last 30 minutes is optional. We've got another 19 minutes left if anybody has questions. Karen, what are your final thoughts for today?
I still keep creating more videos. I have one in the brew. So that's the way I learn. So I'll keep sharing all those good things.
We're always so excited. You've got a team that is very excited. Let us know about those t-shirts. We have all kinds of ideas. All right, John can't do a heart. We'll have a little. We'll do a little photo for you separately, John. So Kathy asked this question: what has the Russell teaching inspired you to seek? So she's specifically asking that to John.
The Russell teachings have inspired me to seek a greater understanding and a greater working awareness of my Creator. And I'm fortunate, I'll be 70 in September, and I'm so fortunate to be able to look back upon my life and to see where I am today. And now in my retirement years, I can be totally focused on just me and God, and me manifesting my awareness, my awareness of my Creator. So that's the best way I can answer that for Kathy.
Okay, thank you. And so if any of you have any other questions, even if you have specific people, Kathy, love the way you pulled John out. Feel free. You will not hurt any of our feelings if you ask a question of a particular panel member. Jean did bring up something. She says, I think you asked our opinion about pacing. As for me, please don't speed things up. So many concepts don't register in the soul mind. And so that is one of the questions we have. So right now, the format that we agreed on until we receive further feedback is this is designed to cover 1 unit per month, because there are 12 units to the home study course. So what we're doing is we're taking, each unit has 4 lessons. If we hear back feedback from you all that you would like us to take longer to go over some of the lessons, then we'll figure that out as we go along. But right now, that's what the team had decided, was to do 1 lesson per week, and we'll see where we end up. We will have a guest student joining us at the end of June, another Russell student that's been around a very long time, and so we're going to have him come in. And anybody who is a seasoned Russell student that's running across this work, if you want to join us for a future broadcast, we do plan to bring in a guest each month and try that out to continue shaking up the conversation. We also have had some practices in the past where we had a graphic facilitator capture some of the images for our teachings. So we have all kinds of ideas. We all are seeking about ways we can bring this to life and serve all of you. So are there any other questions in the chat box? We're about to wrap it up. Ken, now that we can hear you, any final thought and just response to Karen's video?
Oh yeah, I thought it was wonderful. Great job. It was inspiring, and seeing that language like that laid out, the energy was great. The music was wonderful. Did you do the music too, Karen?
It's all on my Canva. The whole thing is.
Good for you. Well, it sounds, the music was really nice.
Toolbox.
Love it.
Well, good job. You did a good job.
All right,
Very
so we'll say a gracious thank you to everyone. Feel free to continue following us along. Invite your friends. A gracious thank you to James for our tech producer and to the entire panel for pouring their heart into it. And a gracious thank you to all of you. Even if your sense brain, sense body doesn't understand what we're saying, please just invite in and know that your heart always knows these things. Always knows these things and it's coming up to you. So a gracious thank you, Kathy, Jean, Rita, and all of those of you who are with us. We'll look forward to seeing you next Sunday at 7 p.m. Bye, everyone. Until next time.
Bye.
Ciao.